Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the virtual podcast, live streams, whatever you want to call it, from Whitey's. Tonight, we're really excited about tonight. We have Hannah Ferguson from Do- Dope the brand and Dope Cidery and Winery in Ohio, and she just left. Her thing went weird. So she's going to be joining us in a couple minutes when she gets back up online. Here she comes, and we're going to talk to her about her what she's been doing in beer. She's been all over beer, wine, cider. So I'm pretty interested in talking to her. She's like one of the stars on the Collect Them All series at from Duclaw. So there she is there. So we'll talk to her a little bit about how that came about. People, and I'm curious about honestly people of color in like the cider industry and the wine industry. I'm very interested in that. I mean, in beer, it's pretty small, but I don't know what it's like in cider and or wine. So why don't we bring Hannah up? We don't have a lot of I don't have a lot of announcements. M. Sauter from Pints and Panels will be on in a couple weeks. Another Duclaw person. She's our next one, and then all I can really say is Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Actually, so there you go. So let's bring Hannah up with us. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
We
How
got
are
it.
you?
Good. Let's do it this. Actually, I like it this way. We look better this way. You look better anyway, but I look better this way. So good evening. This is Hannah Ferguson of Dope the Brand, and tell us a little bit about that Dope the Brand, and then we'll get
Okay.
into your background, and we'll get into cider and wine and beer and where you see people of color and all of those things. And I'm curious about all of this. So let's start
Okay.
with Dope the Brand.
Okay. Well, Dope the brand. That is how you can find me on Instagram. That's kind of where I do majority of my social media. But Dope stands for Dwelling on Positive Energy. I started my company close to 5 years now. I've had my LLC, and probably like a year after I started my LLC, I decided to go to try to pursue my passion for cider and wine on a more professional level. And this was kind of just like in this following the coattails of like the rise of craft breweries, a lot of urban wineries. And once I like did all the research, and I was just like, hey, this is something I could, I could possibly do. So in the midst of like me, kind of just working on that, that's kind of how I like fell in love with like wanting to learn more about craft beer as
Right.
well. So, and then it just kind of just landed in my lap. It was a local brewery here that had just opened, and I reached out and just wanted to like just say just come on like, hey, can I just see the process, because I honestly knew nothing about the process of making beer. I knew about wine and cider. I didn't know anything about the beer, and so I would come help out on a few like other like their double brew days and things like that. And then some months later, they needed a assistant brewer, and they reached out to me, and they liked the fact that I my background wasn't in beer, and but I still had like that fermentation knowledge and like the being sanitary things like that. So I still had that kind of background. So they asked me to if I wanted to come on as an assistant brewer. So I did that for about 2.5 years, close to 3 years.
Wow, really? So
Yeah.
I mean, there's some similarities in all three of those things with the fermentation and that kind of stuff. How did you
hmm
get interested in cider first, though? That's what I'm curious.
it I've been doing cider and wine for about the past close to 10 years now, and it kind of just started as like a hobby. I had some family, my stepmom's on her side, she had some family who have been home winemaking probably for 30, 40 years. And
Okay.
so we used to always just get wine from them. And then when I kind of like, I moved back home, I used to live in Orlando for a little bit. When I moved back to Ohio, I just wanted something to do. It was like, hey, can y'all teach me how to do this? I was like, I think this is so cool. And so they taught me everything they knew, they taught me. And then when I realized that I could make like 2 cases of wine for so cheap for 24 bottles for this amount, and the only thing I had to do was have just a little bit of patience, it kind of was sold on there. And then so
Right.
I literally started off with like doing 10 gallons. I did like a white and a red. And then it just grew from there. And then one year I was like in my basement and I had like 60 gallons of wine going at one time. And I was like,
Man.
oh, man, this is crazy. So, but yeah, so
How
it
did you
kind of just grew
package
from there.
that? Did you just go to like people donate bottles to you, that kind of stuff? Like how do you like
People,
on that stuff, how do you cork it up and that kind of thing?
people would like give, they taught me, the people who I learned from, they would always like, if they would refurbish bottles. So they gave me a lot of
Okay.
bottles and they sanitized it that way. But then I also bought brand new bottles because then once I got to so much, and then it's just like a floor corker, things like that. So it was like I went from like straight from like, I didn't even have like a hand corker. I just had the floor model,
Right.
and it just did that, and it was just like almost, but it was always like it was like a self assembly line. Like so, I would bottle the wine, cork it, like clean the bottles, put them in the cases. So things like that. So I've had some ups and downs. Like one time I had like at least 24 bottles just start popping in the middle of the night. I woke up and all I heard was and I was
Because
like,
it was still
oh my
because
goodness,
it was still fermenting.
yes. And I was just like, so I learned the hard way. Like even here, like you guys get cold weather, like you to do like a cold crash today. This is like the best season to do it. But one time I forgot my carboys were outside, and the temperature dropped to like 0 degrees. And I went outside. I was like, I remembered it, and one of them was broke. And it was like, so
Ah,
there's just like slushy grape juice or basically wine was all like on my back porch. And so it's things like
yeah.
that, ups and downs of like home winemaking. But it's like I definitely can't wait to get into like my own commercial space and don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. What did you use for grapes? Just like when
Um,
you
this sourced fresh juice from some
okay.
a local
I thought
winery
maybe
here.
you were doing everything. So like you were like Lucy
Oh
in
no.
that one famous. So you're in the bathtub walking.
Yeah, I've seen some, like I have some friends who actually there's some really serious Italians and they love their red wine, and I saw their process, and like they get the grapes from California. It's like a whole like
That's
few
a
week
whole
process that
different
they
level,
do.
though.
And I was like, nah, I was like, I just want the juice already done for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that juicing them are probably the hardest. Same with apples, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
apples,
same with apples.
you have to like to do it, you have to crush them and all that. For when you make home cider, you already get the juice,
Yeah, I go to we have a Ohio has a lot of like orchards. So
right?
I just go to a local mill, a cider mill, and just buy same way, like buy the pill. It's usually like 5 gallons that you can get at a time on that level, and that's how I just kind of started off with that way.
When you were doing ciders, would you do like all apple or would you add other fruits? Would you
I would
experiment that
I
way?
would do. I started off with like just all apples, but then once I started to like see more people, like a lot of ciders are the addition of other fruits to give
Hmm.
them other flavors. I started playing around like that, like adding fruits, even like mixing it up, adding some wine. So just playing around with like taste like that. But yeah, it's like it's a fun process, is knowing like the bases. The base can be all the same, and then just whatever you add, whether you do a second fermentation or like after the fact. So that's always fun. Just a different
Yeah,
combination that you can do.
I mean, for cider, it's a wine too. I don't know anything about either one of them as far as making them. How long? It's like, with beer, it has to ferment. How long is the fermentation process for both of those?
Well,
Similar or
sometimes like
pretty short?
cider is the same fermentation process as beer. So
Oh,
within
really?
2 weeks, 3 weeks, you have cider ready to go.
Okay.
Unless like you do it like kind of true English style and just let it just work itself. And that can take longer, and that could take like similar to like wine. Wine is anywhere for like a white 3 to 6 months, red at least 6 months.
Does
That
that
you want
depend on
to
how
just
dry you want it?
well, it instantly like it goes through the fermentation process pretty fast. So, like probably within 7 to 14 days, you're
Okay.
bone dry. Like you get the juice and it's so sweet you don't want to drink it. Then you once you add the yeast, within like I said 7 to 14 days, it's super dry. You just want it to like settle, clean up, and then the as it sits, it just like you can just tell the alcohol just gets stronger and stronger, pretty much in that. So it's just a waiting game, just fine tuning it, and so it's pretty much. And then also, I use like I've used some Ohio grapes too, because Ohio we do have quite a few vineyards. But yeah, so that process is just a little bit longer. But with cider, it's good to go pretty much after 2 weeks, and
When the cidery opens? I guess they call them cideries, right?
mhm.
Um, you'll source all local Ohio apples then,
Yeah,
for the
or
most part. Or
I will get them as close as I can to Ohio, because it's actually sometimes like even experiencing like the past year and a half, some of the local ones run out.
right.
So then you just have to find like whoever has juice. But definitely like my first go to is as local as possible that I can get um to get my juice.
I think I think what's cool. I've had a couple cider people on. What's cool about ciders too is there's so many varietals of apples, and so then you get like apples that are like basically indigenous to the state, and I forget what they call those, but there's some that are just basically just from that area, and
Hmm.
and like like New York has a bazillion apples, and they're all like that climate grows these particular apples really well. Like I'm from Massachusetts, so like in Massachusetts we have a lot of Cortlands, and you don't see. I'm in
Hmm.
Maryland now, and I don't see that kind of apple here. So there's a big variety of apples throughout, and varieties of apples throughout, especially the Northeast into the where you are. Like I'm
Hmm.
Michigan, Ohio, New York, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. That's a big apple belt. Vermont.
Yeah.
Um, so like
Because even
there's
PA, I'm right on the border of
Mhm.
Pennsylvania too. So it's like you said, it's so many different type of apples, and even like research, you just don't know. Like even with me, like now researching now and just trying to figure out where do I want to get my apples, what taste do I want to have, or what. But so many apples bring so many different like components that sometimes it does take some people years to figure out like, hey, this is their go-to, or they learn how to mix certain juices that they want to do. So it's like it's a completely
Yeah, it's I
wide
think it's super
range.
cool because you can basically do historical ciders. Like they would have
Hmm.
had, cider is one of the earliest drinks, obviously in this country. So you can have like basically historical ciders. Like I know
Hmm.
they do that in a lot of places like Williamsburg and stuff. They like use heritage brands, heritage varieties. So I think cider. I mean, I'm not a huge cider guy. I mean, I like it well enough, but it's pretty interesting that part of it, the history of it.
Yeah, and I think too a lot of the cideries that are out there, some of them have an advantage of having a certain apple because a lot of them have their own orchard.
Right.
So when like kind of like in my case and like other like smaller urban cideries that we're kind of like left out there to see what certain places have. What do you have that we can source, especially if you want to try to stay local? And obviously, it's more cost efficient on the smaller end to stay local because you don't have to pay like all the shipping and transportation
Right.
costs to get that. So yeah, so I would hope like, but again, I've thought about it, like even like with my like research before I started this, I was like, I don't see myself growing like a vineyard when I was like thinking about
Yeah,
wine.
it takes so
I
long for that too.
yeah, I was like, I try to keep my house plants alive, let alone like a whole like. So it was things like that. So when the rise of like urban wineries and things like that, where you could just get the juice
Yeah,
already
I
pressed
mean, I
for
wanted
you.
to ask you about that. Is there is there a good amount of urban cideries and urban wineries? I don't know anything about that.
There actually surprisingly there are like then that's kind of like kind of how I fell into it. I thought like this was kind of possible. They like because I always thought like when you have a winery, you have to like have a vineyard. And
Mm-hmm.
then once you like really look at it and look into it, and even like a lot of your local wineries that you may see, if you ask them, a lot of the times they're like, no, we source our grapes from a vineyard. So,
Right.
or even if they have like a press and everything like that, they still may ship their grapes from California. A lot of the grapes, certain kinds, come from California, and even I know people who get them from Italy. So
Right.
it's like it's serious like that because especially if you want a certain style and you want that history in the grape, you want to get it from those places and try to do it true to style. And I always joke with people is like I love the openness of cider because there's truly a lot of wine snobs out there, and I've had people tell me of jump like I was like, oh, I only drink wine from California, so I won't drink your wine. I just be like, that's
You
cool. Like,
you like that's cool, except the grapes are from California, and that's the biggest
yeah,
part of the wine.
yeah. So it's just like, so people are serious, like serious about that. They want to look at their label and see it's from Napa Valley or somewhere over there, and they won't try any other like. Especially a lot of people too. We kind of like urban wineries may use more like stainless steel. We use like
Right.
steel drums rather other than barrels. So
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, and barrels are expensive, and like honestly, it takes how many years for like vineyards to like really get their their grapes to get good. I mean, it takes a
yeah.
really long it takes a really long time for that. So that's cool.
Hmm.
So you started in cider and wine, then you moved a little bit into beer.
Hmm.
And so what was that experience like? Was it an easy transfer? Was it I mean, the principles are all the same,
Yeah. It
but
was. I think it was easy for me because it was like I said, the principles are the same. But the fact that I really had to channel my science, like I was just like, this is 100% science.
right,
Like beer is like, and beer is pretty much you follow the recipe to the T. Any slip up, it can alter and change the whole beer.
right,
So, like, if you miss a hop drop, or if you boil too hard, or if you like stick the, anything can happen. Like, and so I kind of went from uh, like having patience to wait for the wine to be done to like having to, you know, channel my focus for this amount of time, whether it's or pretty much like on a full day of
right.
making sure everything is done right from that time frame from start to finish. Like making sure I made sure I added the water treatment for the water. So, checking your pH, keeping the temperatures the same. Like, so it was like a learning curve that way, because again, I was like, I instantly have to be on the ball at all times during the brew day. And then with wine, it's like, okay, I work, I get the juice in the fermenter done, and then I'm waiting. And then it's like, you work, you bottle. But this was like, hey, to the T. So that part was just, it was a change for me. But it's like, I loved it. It's like your whole day kind of, if everything went right, your whole day went by fast. You were like, all right, I'm here 6:30, 7 a.m. Then we're transferring beer and I'm cleaning up 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I'm going home. So
what's your favorite style of beer to brew?
Les, I would have to say, I don't know. I don't think I have I have a least favorite style to brew. It's a kettle sours. I hate brewing sours. It's just like that process is just so long.
Right.
But it's not even, because it's like you brew it, but you don't bring it to a boil. You let it sit. You basically come back the next day, then bring it to a boil. And I'm just like,
let the lactic acid start working. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just like, and then the system that we had at the brewery, it was just like, we joked, called it like, it's like a giant homebrew system, because it was 7.5 barrels, but it was like true barrels, like we're cooking on a stove. So we would wrap up our boil kettles so the temperatures can stay in there. So my least favorite style would definitely be the kettle sour. And I would just have to say, I always was I liked lagers, but I only liked lagers brewing them in the winter. Because here you have to transfer at least 50 degrees to transfer them from, like, cool it down from 210 to in the fermenters at least 50 degrees. And in the summer, you would be working your glycol. Yeah, you work your glycol so hard to try to get it down because it's just so hot outside. So,
is that your favorite style to drink, though? What's your favorite style to drink? Lagers?
It's my favorite style right now. I'm really into hazy IPAs currently.
Well, that brings us right to this puppy then, doesn't it? Yes. You're very good. That was a great segue to that. So have you had this beer?
When I got it, when they mailed it to me, I instantly put one in there. Everyone's like, "You're not supposed to drink it." I was like, "I don't know what it tastes like. How am I not supposed to drink it?" I was just like, beer is not wine. It just can't sit there and be good 3 years later. I was like, I'm drinking it. I'll just keep the can.
Yeah, how exciting is that to have your face on a beer can? Better than on a milk carton, I guess, right?
Yeah. When Duclaws reached out to me, sometimes like you'll get a message on Instagram, and then I saw this from Duclaws, and I'm thinking like, yo, this is spam. I was like, why would Duclaws be reaching out to me? So then, like, I kind of like viewed their profile, made sure it was like legit Duclaws. Then I went back and like accepted it because we weren't friends like that. So then I accepted it, and then I was like, oh, they're serious. So it was just something cool. It was almost like a great secret to keep because like we've been working on this probably since summer, maybe May, June, when they have originally reached out. Yeah. So, and it was just like a building process from there. I think it was even before like May. It could have been like April. So, and then they said like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. It's not gonna be released until October, and so it was exciting.
I think it's a pretty cool series. Have you talked to other people that were involved in it? Were there like group chat thingies?
it was crazy. Like, I never really knew who else was on the labels until they sent us an email, kind of like with all the labels on there, like, hey, this is the
Okay.
label and everything. And that's when I saw, and then I realized, like, one of my friends through beer, like, we Barb, I think she was on here a few weeks ago.
Yeah, Barb was
That
on with the Duclaw folks. Yeah, the other night.
I didn't know she was on the label, and then I messaged her. I was like, "Yo, you're on the label too," and it was crazy. And then I had met M and Adam from Trace. I met them at the Barrel and Flow Fest
In Pittsburgh? Is that
in
Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh. So, and again, I still was like, hey, that's my first time ever meeting them. And then, but we had already knew we were all on the label, so that was kind of cool too. But we still hadn't told the public about it, so we
Right.
knew. But it was just cool, like that. It's come around like that way. And then I believe I also had met Stephanie when I was in Atlanta, but
Okay.
it was like very brief. It was like I was just like, and I didn't realize, I didn't put it together again until I saw her on the label. I was like, oh, like we met when I was down there, but it was like real quick. So
So you guys have a nice little club. You like the
yeah,
first. You like the first group, right?
yeah.
Because I
So
think they're doing it. I think they're doing. I was talking to Rachel last week or whatever, and I think she said that they're actually doing another version of it.
mhm,
As far as like
yeah,
another series to get like people, I think it's a great series. I think it's
yeah,
interesting. I think all the people. I'm going to try to get them, some of these other folks to come on with me to talk. I think it's just an interesting thing, and what I like about it is it shows the diversity, or at least it's starting the conversation of diversity in beer,
mhm,
and in your case, in cider and wine too.
yeah.
So, I mean, I think it serves an important. I think it's an important thing to do as far as starting conversation.
Yeah, it definitely is. And then it's like, again, like it's cool, like it's on a can label. It's like, hey, here's our face, scan this code, see our interviews, read our stories.
Yeah, because
Um,
there's
uh,
like, so we sell this at the store, so we have all of them, I guess,
mhm,
and so people can just do the QR code, and then you can see what Hannah's about. You can see what M. Sauter's about, Emily Wang, all those people. So it's a
yes.
pretty interesting. It's an interesting concept, and I think maybe overdue on
Mhm.
on a lot of levels. I mean, how do you feel about? Um, do you think people of color are getting more of a voice at this table now, or do you think it's still got a ways to go?
I think it has. I feel like we still have a ways to go. I
Okay,
think more. I think it's more open. And I think once more black-owned breweries open,
right,
I feel like then it'll be a lot stronger voice, because we have so many people who are in the process of opening a brewery, or they do a lot of contract brewing because they don't have a brick and mortar, but is huge. Like, I feel like it's definitely coming, but it's like we're still less than 1% out of all the breweries in the United States. Black owned breweries, we're still less than 1%. So it is the same with cider and wine industry, um, less than 1%. So it's like, I feel like the the passion is there, the drive is there, and it's just more opportunities like this and more people's stories being told, that I feel like can open up doors for anyone.
right.
So
Yeah, I just wonder. I wondered because there's so many breweries now. I wonder if that will affect people, all people, and maybe particularly people of color, about getting the money and that kind of stuff. Just because, like, you go to a bank or whatever, and they might be like, "There's already 10,000 of these things. How are you going to be different than anybody else?"
Yeah, I
I mean,
think
I
too,
think it's a
especially if
challenge across the board, but I think
yeah,
it may particularly be more challenging to people of color.
yeah, banks are already cutthroat when you are a startup.
Mm-hmm.
So it's already like I've been dealing with the challenges again. Like it's taken me
Well, you
four
guys are
years.
renovating your space now, correct?
Yeah, it has taken me 4 years to get to this part, and I still probably wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for the brewery that I'm leasing space from giving me the opportunity. It was like, hey, we have this space, we're going to be renovating it. We see you in this space? Would you want this? And if
Okay.
it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have the capital to renovate a whole space. Like, and then it's just kind of like how my area is. Either the buildings are need a lot of work, and you got to have that capital, or if they're already in a sense moving and ready, the rent is crazy, and you really can't. You would be paying rent and can't even make a product because you like TTB was like 6 months out before they even looked at your
Mm-hmm.
application. Then the state of Ohio was behind, so and then the state of Ohio won't approve your license until TTB, and then you have to have everything in your space and ready to go before they come in and say, "Hey, here you go. Now you can make wine and cider." So in a sense, you almost have to think you need to like a whole year rent overhead before you can
Mm-hmm.
even actually
Before
start
you
making
can,
money. So, and I'm just like I said, I'm just thankful for getting this opportunity with them because they were like, "Hey, we've been through this process before." They're coming from a um, a contract brewing point of view, so they were like, "Hey, we
right.
know how the state is. We know TTB. We believe like again," and they found out what I did even though we knew each other from the industry. They knew me as a brewer. They didn't
Right.
know I wanted to open up my own cider and wine spot, so they
Right.
heard word of mouth. Like they were like, as soon as they bought their warehouse, they bought like a 35,000 square foot old steel mill
Right.
warehouse.
Ooh.
And so they as soon as they bought it here in downtown Youngstown, Penguin City Brewing, a few people just went up to them and was like, "Hey, you need to talk to Hannah. You need to talk to Hannah." And they're looking like, "Why? Why do we need to talk to Hannah?" And then they told them what I wanted to do, what I have been trying to do, and they called me first thing. And like I again like just from them getting word of mouth from other people put me in a position that I am now to be able
Right.
to be able to open my doors in the next couple months. So, and I'm thankful for that. But yeah, it's just hard. It's just so much, and obviously every state, every city
Everybody's
is
different.
different. Yeah, but here it's just like again, like I literally like we're right now too. We're waiting for our fermenters to get here, and they've been in the water in California in the Pacific Ocean waiting to dock for almost
Yeah.
3 weeks now.
And that's the other thing. Opening now is even more difficult because there's a lot of uncertainty about like everything. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, so that makes it that much tougher. But when you get open, the positive is you'll be a great community center, right? And so usually what happens is you get in these spots. You know this better than I do, probably. But yeah, they're in parts of cities where maybe it's not. You know the buildings are old, they're falling down, they need renovation, blah blah blah. A lot of people aren't hanging out there, but places like your spot in Penguin City and these breweries bring people in, and so it grows out and
Hmm.
it becomes a positive influence on the whole area. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's the beauty of all of this, right?
Yeah.
Because it's you're basically a sapling that's going to help grow this whole area into something spectacular. So
Yeah.
that's the
And it's
beauty of it.
definitely it's definitely something positive. Again, like I said, in the Black community, people of color, it's just like it's like a win for all of us. It's like a positive thing because the amount of support and it's like some people I've met, some people I only know via social media is
Right.
Something so many people are like, hey, when you're opening, we want to come support, like we want to do this. And it's just like that community is amazing. Like we have that's that much love and support for someone. Again, like they may only see me post when I post,
Right.
but they're like, hey, this is a win for us because hey, we see you opening this, and then that just means more to come. And like even like last year when I was recognized as being the first Black female professional brewer in the state of Ohio. I'm like, hey, I'm the first, but definitely not the last. And then maybe like 6 months, close to a year later, someone reached out to me on social media, and she had just got hired at a brewery, and she was a Black female
Nice.
in Columbus. And she's like, hey, and we finally got to meet up a few months ago in Cincinnati, at a brewery down there, and we just talked. And she's having a great learning process in her industry. So I was just like, it's just cool. Like we are the first and the second Black female
Well,
brewers in the state of
and
Ohio.
now you
So
give people somebody to look up to, and people will
yeah,
if they did it, I could do it, and why
yeah.
not?
It,
And that's
again,
beautiful. I love that.
it's also like fields that we probably never thought about going into. It's not something like, even like a lot of people, it's not saying like, hey, I want to grow up and I want to work at a brewery. I want to own a brewery. I want to brew beer, things like that. These are like careers and paths that you may never have thought of ever. And a lot of people ask me too, is like, I did everything I was supposed to do, went to college, got my master's degree, different things like that. And they're like, hey, you brew beer, you do this. And I'm like, yeah. So it's just like, I
But
wanted to
have you ever
be,
always thought of yourself as an artistic person or a person that likes to do things with their hands? And
I,
you like to see, I feel like there's that certain segment of a lot of people that are in beer or cider or whatever that are making things. They're makers,
mm,
right? So
yeah.
so they have that. Did you make stuff when you were a kid? Did you have that sort of drive?
I was always like into like doing a lot of things from scratch. Like I used to bake, I used to do this. So I was into that. And like, all of my family, like my parents and stuff, they're all from the South. So they always had like this, not necessarily like into like gardening or anything like that, but my aunts made their own homemade biscuits. They made their own
Okay.
jams and jellies, different things like that. So I kind of just grew up with like, I felt like it must have been just been in me, because I can't fix anything to save my life. So working with my hands, I'm not. And again, working at the brewery, I learned so
How to
many
fix stuff.
tools that I never even heard of. I was like, oh, okay, it's more than a screwdriver. Okay. So, so it's like, it's things like that. So I definitely like to see how things like this are being highlighted, and a lot more people are, learning about it, and are comfortable probably stepping out the norm. Because a lot of people think like, oh, you have your master's, you have your MBA, why aren't you in corporate America? But I was like, I really never saw myself wearing a suit every day, or something like
Right.
that. I was like, I'm so comfortable getting dirty, having dusty boots, like wearing a hoodie,
Well,
like
describe the feeling of your first, like the first cider. Okay, so you make your first cider and you give it to somebody and you see their reaction. What's your feeling inside? That you must have been like, this is amazing. I can do this.
yeah. And it was always like, and it was, I, yeah, it just made you smile because it was just like, and I was like say like you were like that cool kid in the room, the cool kid at the party, like you're bringing in this, and people love it, and you made it, and people are loving it. So, and then it's like, hey, we don't know anybody who's ever done this.
Right.
Like, you may hear one story here, like, oh, my grandmother used to make this or something, but very rare. No one has ever met anybody who made their own like wine or cider or anything like that. So it's
So
just
it's
like
that gratification that drives you.
Yeah,
right?
but then it also makes me nervous too, because then I'm thinking about like, oh shoot, I'm about to do this on a big scale. Like, I cannot mess up. so many people are looking at me, so I'm just like, oh man, like, so if you interview me next year and I don't have any hair, then we know.
Or it's all gray. Well, no,
You don't see me. I'm just gonna shave it all off.
That's awesome. So what are you doing for Thanksgiving?
Actually, going down to Columbus, Ohio. I have family there, but we decided to do something different this year for Thanksgiving and not stay. Usually, everyone comes home, like my cousins and stuff. We all meet up here in Youngstown. But after like last year, we were just like, we wanted something different because of the pandemic. And then we all actually got sick after Thanksgiving, so we were just like, yeah, we need something different. So we're meeting at a cousin's house in Columbus and having Thanksgiving there for the weekend. So
Are you bringing cider? What are you bringing? Cider, wine, and beer?
I'm actually probably only gonna bring some wine.
Okay.
Because I don't have anywhere to put like the cider. Because I usually have it in kegs.
Right.
So I'm probably just gonna bring some wine because my cousins really like wine, and then yeah, that's probably it. Then I'll probably get some beer when I'm in Columbus. There's so many amazing breweries in Columbus, so I'll definitely branch off.
With most meals, do you prefer beer or wine or cider?
Actually, like I would say beer.
Really?
Yeah, right now I'm beer, and then I'll have like wine here and there. Cause like I also feel like a lot of my wine is like in like the normal size bottles. So then I'm just like, I feel like I'm forced to like drink the whole thing.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that.
But and then again, like it too is like so. Unless I'm like sharing or something like that, I would drink beer because I feel like I can get it in a can or something like that. And I can just it just be me. But yeah, but I'm pretty much open. It depends on the setting or like who I'm with or where I am as to what I choose. But like right now, I'm probably gonna go grab a burger and have a beer,
Nice.
whatever's on draft there. So
well, that's awesome. Well, I'm going to let you go do that because you're probably hungry because I'm getting a little hungry because I just got home from work. Hannah, this was great. And everybody follow Hannah on Dope the Brand and all the things. And Facebook for the Cidery, Dope the Cidery and Winery. Follow their progress. Shoot her some encouraging texts.
Please.
She's doing great. We don't want her hair we want her hair to still be dark next year when we talk to her again.
Yes, please. Because I can say I will be 40 in May, and I have like maybe 4 gray hairs in my head. So
yeah, we want to reverse that.
I want to hold on as long as I can.
There you go. Well, Hannah, this is great. I appreciate you coming on with me. Go grab that burger, and I'll reach out to you soon, and we'll talk. And
okay,
we'll maybe we can get together over the next
definitely because I keep hearing about the amazing breweries down your way. It's only like a 4-hour drive for me. So
yeah, because you're Youngstown, right? So you're not really that far. Yeah, you're really not that far. And if they do the what's the big festival in Pittsburgh every summer?
Barrel and Flow.
Maybe I'll head out for that.
It used to be called Fresh Fest, but it's Barrel and Flow now. So
nice, very cool, very good. Thank you. I appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
on. Have a great Thanksgiving with your family. Have a wonderful holiday, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. You too. Have a good
Bye-bye.
night.
You
Thanks,
too.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Very cool. She was wonderful. So this is the can. We still have some of work at the store. This is the can with Hannah on it. This is what it looks like. So it's a 4-pack. It's got all different people on it. You can actually hit the QR code and learn their stories. So appreciate everybody watching, and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll be back in a couple weeks with actually M. Sonner of Pints and Panels. Can you see that? I got this new light. It's really bright. So anyway, thanks everybody. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it, and happy Thanksgiving.